Hey guys, it's the Brain Scratch crew, and are you guys ready to use your zappy guns?
No, I don't think anybody is. Nobody knows how to respond to that.
I'm ready. Well, I'm the only one who's played.
We're gonna
Trauma
shoot the
here,
radioactive supercores?
Yeah, there they are, and there's another one. Oh man.
Speaking as a pretty big Atlas fan, I know nothing about these games at all.
Nobody knows anything about these games. There are literally times when I feel like the only person on the internet who's played Trauma Center, and it's a lonely, lonely feeling. So, yes.
So it's a funny story, actually. You know, Ted was the one that recommended we do this for the Brain Scratch channel. So he recorded the first game, and then we ended up with a bad case of 60-part commentary.
No, this is...
And then I asked, can we have a second opinion, please? And here we are.
Well, Trauma Team is actually the most recent game. This is a remake of the first game, which was on the DS. And this is one of the Wii's launch titles, I think. And honestly, it's my favorite one out of those, although there really isn't too much competition, because there's, like, Wii Sports and Twilight Princess, which, you know...
And Excite Trucks.
Yeah, no thanks. So, yeah, yeah, as you can tell, this game, it's very easy to tell that this is a remake of a DS game, though, because, you know, flying anime portraits that are static and whatnot.
Yeah.
Alright, it's a game about surgery.
Yes. Well,
Now the shooting aliens.
A little bit. It's vaguely surgery related. That's what I'll say.
Shooting the aliens in the radioactive supercores.
Yeah.
Does it mean anything that I can tell this is an Atlas game just from character design alone? Atlas seems to have a very distinctive...
I'm pretty sure the guy who did a lot of the Trauma Center art designs did Shin Megami Tensei 4's character design, and I think he might have done some Persona too. So.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I just see. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if either because they have a status quo, or if it's the same artist, but you can generally tell who made the game just from aesthetics or character design. You know, I can just look. You didn't need to tell me this was Atlas to let me know that this was an Atlas game.
Well, part of it's because the game's really weird, but another part is that yes, Atlas does reuse a lot of its like a lot of its teams work on basically everything that they do. So you know, like the Persona Q game is basically just Atrian Odyssey Persona Edition.
Yeah, they probably have like a fuckload of concepts that they don't use for one game, but they'll probably use it for another type of game.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Hopefully that buyout by Sega will give them a bit more staff and resources to do things with.
Yeah, well, you can already tell that Sega wants to milk money from Atlas because, you know, as soon as Sega got Atlas, somehow all of Atlas's PS2 games ended up on the PSN store. So
Well, they haven't put DDS or the what's the other one? Well, I know they haven't put the Digital Devil Saga games up yet, but it's only a matter of time now.
Well, they did all the Persona ones and Nocturne and Raidokuza something.
Raidokuza Noha. The second one isn't out yet, but it'll come out eventually.
Well, they need to like stagger that stuff so by the time they finish one game, you actually you want to play the next one. And, oh, conveniently, it's up on the store now. Money, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our surgery pre-thing. Briefing.
Breathe, Ted. Breathe, Ted. Breathe.
Okay, so yes, you can also tell that this is a Wii U, not a Wii U, a Wii launch game because the graphics look like they could be on the Dreamcast. But this is basically what Trauma Center's gameplay is like at the beginning. It's actually more like an arcade game than anything else, really. Like, you remove stuff and you suture wounds and stuff, but the game's really, really fast-paced, and there's, like, points jumping up all over the place and whatnot. So, yeah.
I would hate it if all my surgeons decided to go for time records.
You don't... Well, here's the thing, though. You've got 5 minutes to save your patient, right? If you are at the very end and you're just about to put the bandage on the person and the time runs out, oh no! He's going to die! Guys, I've got a bandage right here. I just gotta put it... Oh no! He's going to...
Oh, the humanity!
You are a horrible doctor! Go live in shame for the rest of your life. Literally, that's what the game over screen basically says. It's just like, Dr. Styles never be operated ever again because he didn't put the bandage on within 3 seconds.
Because the miracle never happened.
The miracle never happened. Best typo ever.
Let me say though, is this? Do you think this game works better on the Wii, or is you think you can get more out of it in the DS?
Yes. There is no reason to ever play Under the Knife now, because Second Opinion is just, well, it's not the best Trauma Center game, but it's the Wii. I think that the pointer controls is how this game should always have been played, because just due to the touchscreen, you've got your hand in the stylus. So in order to, draw stuff on the screen, you have to cover up part of the screen. And in a game that can get as fast-paced as Trauma Center, that means that you don't see somebody cutting open something on the right side of the screen and then they die. So yeah, pointer controls. Oh yeah, also, in order to, in the DS game, in order to change, your tool, from the scalpel to the sutures, you need to tap a button on the side of the screen. Which means that you need to take your hand away from what's going on, in the surgery, in order to switch tools. And in the Wii games, all you have to do is use the nunchuck and point in a certain direction on the control stick. So you basically you don't have to think as much, or you don't have to look to the side of the screen. And that half a second might not feel like an awful lot, but in a game that can get as hard as this, because Atlas. That half a second is really all that matters at some point. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
So now we gotta remove tumors. Yeah.
Right.
And in this game, how exactly do we remove tumors? Do we just pick them out with little grapes? Or do we have to
well, they make the big deal about this thing called the Powell procedure, which basically means you take your drain and you suck out all the tumor's juices. Gross. And then you excise it by drawing a circle around it with a scalpel, and then you just yank it out and put a bandage on it. There's a lot of redundant crap from the DS game that was removed. There was a hand tool in the original, and you had to, rub down bandages in order to get them to stick in the original, and all you have to do now is put your magic antibiotic gel onto it this time, so, that's good. And you also got magic vital serum, which will just basically make your patient healthier somehow. The thing at the top of the screen, that little number with the green bar, that's the patient's vitals. If that gets down to 0, they die. And then there's that. So that basically just works as its own time limit, because you occasionally have to stop what you're doing to make sure that the vitals don't go down too much. And then there's the just normal time limit. Although most of the time that's not too big of a deal. There are only a handful of missions where that even ever comes into play, for the most part.
Dealing with the time limit and the vitals
time
at
limit
the same
is
time?
usually the time limit is usually pretty lenient. They'll give you 5 minutes for most operations, 10 minutes for a couple of the harder ones. And aside from maybe 1 or 2 operations where you have to do multiple patients, you never really have to worry about the time limit ever coming into play.
Out of curiosity, what's implied if you run out of time?
They just die.
If their vitals are healthy?
Yeah, basically. I do know that it is a real thing, that keeping a patient cut open too long is bad for them. But I think it's just gameplay. This is not trying to be all that realistic, as we will see later in the story.
It's Atlas.
Yeah,
I seem to remember something about zombies and aliens in the awesome thing.
Yeah. Ryan just showed you Awesome Center, right? Right before we started.
Yeah.
That's not too much of an exaggeration, honestly.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus.
Only a little bit.
Anyway, those who watch the archive channel know that we had previously another Trauma Center game.
Yeah, that was Trauma
was
Team,
uploaded.
which I honestly think is much better than this, but it's also 60 parts. Which, before we recorded a couple of RPGs, was the longest game on the channel. Do you want to know? Ryan had to record Final Fantasy IX before we had a longer game than that. Oddly enough. So, yeah.
On a game about surgery, no less. I expect that sort of heart load with, RPGs or just, a really a big game that has a fuckload of side quests.
Like Zelda or something.
Yeah, not a game about surgery.
Well, Trauma Team is structured like Sonic Adventure. Actually, almost exactly like Sonic Adventure. Where there's one giant plot with 6 different characters, and their stories cross over a whole lot. and each one has their own gameplay style. So like,
So what? Instead of fishing for Froggy Big, is just throwing his lure into the body and pulling out tumors.
Yeah, if you don't prep the surgery well enough, chaos comes out of fucking nowhere, and you have to ease him down. And you complete all the stories, you get a super surgeon,
well,
who's also a giant question mark with surgery gloves.
well, kind of.
And like golden spiky hair.
Well, the odd thing is that even though Trauma Team is the game with a Captain America cosplayer and ghosts and magic cell phones, it's probably the most down-to-earth Trauma Center game out of all of them. But there's like a regular surgery guy where the gameplay is basically like what we've got on screen. There's like an orthopedics guy, like an emergency ambulance doctor. And then the parts that add the most to that game's runtime is the forensics mission, which plays out like a CSI version of Phoenix Wright, and the diagnostics version, which is basically just House, starring Spike Spiegel. So yeah, those two stories at the end are what added most of the game of that playthrough's runtime. But it is, well, also the fact that there's full voice acting, which makes the cutscenes take significantly longer than, you know, just reading text on the screen. But still, you know, that is a pretty meaty game. You know, it can go up to, I think my first playthrough took 40 hours. Trauma Team.
Jesus.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun though. If you like Second Opinion, Trauma Team or New Blood, which is more of a direct sequel to this game, I think are definitely worth your time. Play Trauma Center, please. Tell Atlas you like this series. I want another one. Wii U Trauma Center would make so much sense. Please, guys. Yeah.
Oh, I can see why people don't normally go to this kind of game. Like, just...
Ass.
Well, this, if I remember correctly, this game and Phoenix Wright came out within like a month of each other. So, you know, there were like two really bizarre games that came out on the DS, like one after another. So, you know, I think most people, if they've played a Trauma Center game, have played the original DS one, which is like the worst one. So, guys, what are you doing? Stop. So I assume you guys are paying basically no attention to what's going on story-wise right now.
Well, I just know you got a congratulations for, you know, a job well done.
Well, I would be reading the dialogue, but it's going by a little fast. So what's the Cliff Notes version?
Radioactive
Rare Dr.
Supercores.
Styles, newbie doctor extraordinarily fuck up. And that the brown-haired nurses are like mentor nurse, and she's retiring to make way for hot love interest nurse Angie here.
Okay.
And then, you know, there's gonna be... The first chapter is really just tutorial and character introduction, so, you know, not an awful lot of plot happens at this point, but yeah. It is really the least interesting part of the game, because Second Opinion story is just not very interesting, I guess is the best way to put it. Like... It doesn't, later Trauma Center games realize how, eccentric, I guess that's the best word for it, the plot lines can be. And, you know, they go with it, they camp it up a little bit more. Second Opinion just likes to play things a little bit too straight for my taste. So, yeah.
Despite the shit that you go through in the later half of the game.
Despite atom bombs and zombie viruses, you know, they treat it with 100% seriousness.
Maybe that's the joke, though.
It maybe, but the later games do it a bit better.